You're maintaining a steady pace, focused on the path ahead, until the moment of impact. A massive weight drops, obliterating your progress. The default human response is immediate and visceral. Anger rises, followed by an overwhelming urge to point at the wreckage and list every reason why this disruption is an unfair violation of your plans. This reaction is technically valid. The event was external, unprovoked, and mathematically impossible for you to have forecasted or prevented. Yet, consider a second individual facing this exact catastrophe. While you are still standing at the edge of the crater arguing with the circumstances, they have already processed the shock and are moving along a new trajectory. This divergence isn't a matter of luck. It is the result of a strict mechanical framework called the 90-10 rule. This graph maps the anatomy of a setback. The tiny red sliver represents the 10% of life genuinely outside your control. The vast empty space following it is the remaining 90%, a timeline written exclusively by your internal reaction. Complaining surrenders your authority over that 90%. It forces you to spend your most valuable cognitive resources obsessing over a 10% sliver that has already happened and cannot be retracted. Following the victim path means pouring all your mental energy into the unfairness of the strike. You trap your brain in a feedback loop, replaying the injustice until you lack the clarity required to find an exit. This downward trend illustrates how an unmanaged event compounds. Because your focus is locked on the past, you miss current cues, allowing the original failure to branch out into a series of secondary crises. These new failures, strained professional relationships, missed deadlines, and rising anxiety, quickly grow to be far more damaging than the initial 10% obstacle. At the end of this timeline, your momentum has vanished. Every unit of personal agency has been consumed by the spiral. The final devastation was triggered by the initial spark, but it was sustained by the refusal to address the resulting fire. To change this outcome, we have to rewind the scenario back to the exact millisecond after the impact. Preventing the downward spiral requires a clinical, step-by-step psychological framework to intercept your own reflexes. Step 1 is the pause. Stop. You acknowledge the pain or the shock of the event, but you use this moment to contain the emotional response before it can dictate your next action. With the emotion contained, you move to step 2, the pivot. You stop analyzing why this happened and switch to a single tactical question. What is the absolute next move? This leads to step 3, the reframe. You interrogate the failure for data. You look at the rebel not as a wall, but as a set of variables you can use to adjust your strategy. You might find that the detour forced by this obstacle reveals a more efficient route, or that the failure itself highlighted a weakness in your original plan that needed to be fixed. As you execute the remaining 90%, the world will continue to deliver random, uncontrollable strikes. That is a mathematical certainty of being alive. Your only responsibility is to end the complaints regarding the arrival of the 10%. You accept the strike as a data point and ruthlessly execute your reaction. Audit your biggest frustration today. Are you currently executing your 90%? Or are you still standing in the crater, complaining about the 10%?